I spent millions trying to fix everything. But you can't buy back lost time. If you're reading this, it's probably because you, like me, understand the relentless tick of the clock. This isn't a story about regret in the abstract, it's about the suffocating weight of it, the kind that settles deep in your bones when you realize the most precious currency slipped through your fingers. My life was a monument to acquisition, a relentless pursuit of the next big deal, the next soaring stock price, the next luxury that promised a fleeting sense of fulfillment. I built an empire, piece by meticulous piece, believing that wealth was the ultimate shield against life's uncertainties. I convinced myself, with every successful negotiation and every lucrative investment, that I was securing a future, a legacy. Yet, what I truly secured was an emptiness, a profound void where the most vital part of my existence should have been flourishing, unnoticed and unappreciated in my relentless climb. This journey through my past isn't an easy one to recount, nor will it be easy to read, but it's a truth I feel compelled to share, a cautionary tale whispered from the echoes of my own profound mistakes. You see, I had the illusion of control, the steadfast belief that time was an infinite resource, something that could be managed, deferred, or even purchased when the moment was right. I was wrong. Terribly, utterly wrong. The irony, you'll find, is that I prided myself on my foresight, my ability to anticipate market shifts and future trends, yet I remained blind to the most significant investment of all. This is a confession, a testament to the fact that some lessons arrive far too late, leaving nothing but the ghosts of what could have been. Subscribe now to follow this journey, and perhaps, prevent your own similar fate. My name is Richard Donovan, CEO of one of the country's largest holdings. I won the game. I just didn't know it was the wrong game. Richard Donovan was a name synonymous with success, a titan of industry whose decisions moved markets and shaped destinies. My office, a glass and steel marvel atop the city's tallest skyscraper, offered a panoramic view of the world I believed I commanded. From that vantage point, everything seemed within reach, every aspiration a mere stepping stone to the next, even grander achievement. I cultivated an image of unyielding ambition, an individual who never settled, who always demanded more from himself and from those around him. My days were a blur of high-stakes meetings, international calls spanning time zones, and the constant hum of a multi-billion-dollar enterprise operating at my command. The financial journals lauded my acumen, business schools studied my strategies, and I, in turn, embraced the relentless pace, mistaking it for purpose. I genuinely believed I was providing for my family in the grandest possible way, building a fortress of financial security that would insulate them from life's hardships. My logic, twisted as it seems now, was that every sacrifice of my time, every missed moment, was a necessary evil for a greater good. I operated under the delusion that wealth was a substitute for presence, that a comfortable life meant a happy life, and that my son, in time, would understand the magnitude of my efforts. I saw myself as a provider, a protector, failing to grasp that what I was actually providing was absence, and what I was protecting him from was me. The game I was playing, the one I believed I was winning, was a solitary pursuit, a lonely ascent to a summit where the real victory lay unacknowledged, far below. My world was made of broken goals, millionaire bonuses, and first-class travel. Meanwhile, my son grew up in silence. My calendar was a masterpiece of efficiency, meticulously planned months in advance, each block of time dedicated to a deal, a merger, an acquisition. I thrived on the adrenaline of closing, the satisfaction of seeing numbers climb, of expanding my influence across continents. The luxury I afforded myself was simply a byproduct of this relentless pursuit. Private jets whisked me across oceans, five-star suites served as temporary offices, and the finest restaurants became venues for sealing monumental agreements. Life, on the surface, was a dazzling display of accomplishment, a carefully curated existence where every desire seemed to be met with effortless ease. I had created a perfect ecosystem of success, or so I believed, where my professional triumphs overshadowed any personal deficiencies, casting a long, deceptive shadow over the truth. In this self-constructed universe of boundless ambition, my son, David, existed largely on the periphery. He was a constant, gentle presence, a quiet figure moving through the grand, echoing spaces of our meticulously decorated homes. I would see him, of course, during fleeting moments, a quick breakfast before an early flight, a brief goodnight call from a different time zone, the occasional weekend visit punctuated by my own exhaustion or an urgent email. He never demanded attention, never imposed himself on my demanding schedule. Instead, he retreated into himself, finding solace in books or quiet activities, his laughter growing less frequent, his voice softer with each passing year. He was growing, yes, but not under my watchful eye. He was growing into silence, a silence I was too busy to notice, too preoccupied to interpret as anything other than a child's natural reserve. He waited for me on his 8th birthday. I promised I'd be there. But a meeting in Dubai spoke louder. The brightly colored invitation sat on my desk, a small beacon of innocence amidst stacks of financial reports. David's 8th birthday. He had meticulously chosen the theme, superheroes, of course, and even drawn a little cape-wearing figure next to his name. I'd seen his earnest excitement in the days leading up to it, the way his eyes would light up when he'd ask, "Daddy, you're coming, right? You promised." And I had promised, with all the conviction of a man who believed his word was unbreakable. But then the call came, an urgent summons to Dubai, a pivotal negotiation that promised to unlock billions. The stakes were too high, the opportunity too critical to defer. My assistants scrambled to reschedule, to find a way, any way, to make it work, but the timelines were immutable. I remember the knot of guilt that formed in my stomach, a fleeting discomfort quickly rationalized away. This was for him, I told myself. This colossal deal would ensure his future, his education, his every comfort. He would understand, eventually. A video call would suffice, a quick apology, a promise of an even grander gift upon my return. But the image of his hopeful face, superimposed against the backdrop of an empty party chair, lingered. I saw him, in my mind's eye, peering anxiously at the door, then slowly deflating as the hours ticked by. That birthday, a milestone in his young life, became a stark reminder of my misplaced priorities, the first significant crack in the foundation of our relationship, a silent fracture that would only deepen with time, each subsequent absence adding another layer of irreparable damage. With each absence of mine, he spoke less. He sent fewer messages. One day, he stopped calling me Dad. The initial disappointment of a missed event gradually morphed into a deeper, more pervasive sense of quiet resignation in David. It wasn't an angry silence, not at first. It was simply a withdrawal, a slow dimming of his spirit. The excited phone calls from school, brimming with tales of his day, became shorter, less frequent, until they ceased altogether. I'd receive perfunctory texts from my assistant, informing me he was doing well in school or had a good day, but the personal connection, the spontaneous sharing that marks a child's bond with their parent, withered. I often told myself it was simply a part of growing up, that teenagers naturally pulled away, mistaking his profound isolation for typical adolescent independence. My convenience became my truth. The most painful shift came subtly, almost imperceptibly, in the way he addressed me. Dad transformed into Richard, a stark, formal address that felt like a cold, impersonal barrier. It wasn't accusatory, it was simply factual, a designation that stripped away the warmth and intimacy of our paternal bond. Each time he uttered Richard, it felt like a tiny, almost imperceptible sliver of my heart broke off, but I was too immersed in my world of profits and projections to truly acknowledge the profound significance of this change. I justified it as a sign of his growing maturity, his assertion of individuality, anything to avoid confronting the painful reality that I was becoming a stranger to my own son, a figure of authority rather than a source of comfort and love. He didn't want expensive toys. He just wanted a weekend at the lake, like we used to do, when I was still nobody. Amongst the lavish gifts I showered upon him, the latest gaming consoles, designer clothes, an impressive array of gadgets, there was one wish, a simple yearning that he voiced quietly, almost hesitantly, that I consistently overlooked. "Dad," he'd said one evening, his voice barely above a whisper, "do you remember that old cabin by the lake? The one where we used to go fishing?" My mind, perpetually cluttered with corporate strategies and quarterly reports, struggled to retrieve the memory. But it was there, a faint echo from a distant past, a time before the private jets and the penthouse apartments, when I was a struggling entrepreneur, long before I became Richard Donovan, CEO. It was a time when a simple weekend by the water, casting lines with my son, was the greatest luxury we could afford. He didn't want another sports car for his 16th birthday, nor did he covet the latest tech. He just wanted that weekend at the lake, a return to a simpler time, a chance to reconnect with the man I once was, before the relentless pursuit of wealth consumed me entirely. He wasn't asking for extravagance, he was asking for presence, for shared moments, for the quiet intimacy that only genuine connection can provide. But I was always too busy, too embroiled in the latest corporate crisis or international travel schedule. I dismissed his request as sentimental, perhaps even naive, failing to recognize it as a desperate plea for my time, for the one thing money truly could not buy. That unfulfilled wish, that weekend by the lake, remains the most poignant reminder of the gift I tragically withheld. It was a common Tuesday. Until the phone rang. "Your son has been in an accident. He is in critical condition." The shrill, insistent ring of the phone sliced through the meticulously quiet hum of my executive office, a sound so out of place it immediately triggered an alarm within me. Tuesdays were typically predictable, a methodical sequence of calls and reviews. This call, however, shattered that carefully constructed order. The caller ID showed an unknown number, and a cold dread began to creep into my chest even before I answered. My assistant, usually unflappable, seemed to hesitate before connecting the line, a subtle tremor in her voice as she announced, "Mr. Donovan, it's the hospital." The words, when they finally came, were delivered with a chilling calm that belied their devastating impact. Each syllable landed like a physical blow, tearing through the carefully constructed facade of my untouchable world. "Your son has been in an accident. He is in critical condition." The words hung in the air, echoing in the sudden, cavernous silence of my office. My world, which moments before had been vibrant with the pulse of commerce and ambition, instantly collapsed. The intricate web of deals, the pressing deadlines, the immense responsibilities that had defined my existence, all of it faded into insignificance, replaced by a single, agonizing thought: David. The details that followed were a blur, a jumble of medical jargon and hushed urgency, but the core message was searingly clear. The time I had so carelessly squandered, the moments I had so readily traded for profit, were now cruelly finite, potentially gone forever. This was the moment I finally understood the true cost of my obsession, a horrifying realization that arrived with the brutal force of an unforeseen calamity. I arrived in minutes. But no one was waiting for me. Not even him. The drive to the hospital was a blur of frantic speed, the city lights streaking past as an unheeded warning. My private driver, usually stoic, pushed the limits, but even the fastest car couldn't outrun the gnawing fear that had seized my very being. Every second felt like an eternity, each traffic light a cruel impediment to reaching my son. I remember the frantic scramble through the emergency room doors, my expensive suit a stark contrast to the sterile, hurried environment. I expected to find a worried mother, perhaps a sibling, or even a close friend, pacing the waiting room, their faces etched with the same terror that consumed me. I expected a scene, a crisis, a tangible presence of those who loved him, waiting for news. But there was no one. The waiting room was eerily quiet, save for a few distant murmurs. The nurses at the desk, their faces a mask of professional calm, barely glanced up as I announced my name, Richard Donovan. "I'm David's father." No sympathetic nod, no immediate rush to guide me. It was then, in that stark, impersonal silence, that the full weight of my absence crashed down on me. There was no one waiting for me to arrive, because there was no one else there. David was alone, or had been, in his moment of greatest vulnerability. And as for David himself, he was behind those sterile doors, beyond my reach, the silence of the waiting room a chilling echo of the silence I had created in his life. The emptiness in that room was a mirror reflecting my profound failure. There, I understood everything. He didn't need a rich father. He needed me. Simple as that. Standing in that sterile hospital corridor, the antiseptic scent stinging my nostrils, the pieces of my fractured life began to coalesce into a horrifying, undeniable truth. The grand illusion I had meticulously constructed, the one where my financial provisions substituted for genuine connection, shattered into a million irreparable shards. All the luxury, the prestige, the relentless pursuit of more, it all amounted to nothing in the face of this profound, agonizing moment. My son lay vulnerable, perhaps dying, behind those closed doors, and what he truly needed, what he had always silently craved, was not the vast empire I had built, but simply the unwavering presence of his father. The realization was a gut punch, a brutal awakening that ripped through years of self-deception. I replayed countless memories, each one a fresh wound, his small hand reaching for mine, my constant excuse of being too busy, his quiet disappointment, the way his eyes would dim when I canceled plans. He didn't care about the private jet or the vacation homes, he cared about a shared laugh, a comforting hug, a listening ear. He needed me, raw and unedited, present and engaged, not the distant, perpetually preoccupied CEO. The simplicity of this truth was excruciating. It wasn't about the millions I accumulated, it was about the moments I squandered. My wealth, once my greatest source of pride, now felt like a heavy, useless burden, a symbol of everything I had prioritized over the one true treasure in my life. The guilt, sharp and relentless, arrived far too late, a cruel companion to my unbearable sorrow. I left millions in inheritance. But no one seemed interested. Not even him. What I left had no value to him. In the agonizing days and weeks that followed, amidst the hushed tones of doctors and the sterile smell of the hospital, my mind, in its desperate attempt to find control, turned to practicalities. I had meticulously drafted a will years ago, a comprehensive document outlining the distribution of my vast wealth. It was a testament to my foresight, my unwavering commitment to ensuring David's future security, even in my absence. I had envisioned a sense of gratitude, perhaps even relief, from him, knowing that he would be set for life, free from financial worry, able to pursue any dream he desired. I imagined him, in a quiet moment, reading through the clauses, understanding the magnitude of my provision. But as I sat there, day after day, by his bedside, the irony of that document became a bitter, corrosive truth. He didn't want the money. He didn't care about the houses, the cars, the investments. The material legacy I had so painstakingly built, the very thing I believed was my greatest gift to him, held absolutely no value in his eyes. What he wanted, what he truly needed, was the one thing I couldn't put in a will, the one thing money couldn't buy, my time, my love, my presence. The millions I had earmarked for him now felt like a hollow mockery, a testament not to my generosity, but to my profound misunderstanding of what truly mattered. The will, a grand gesture of my material success, was a document no one truly cared to read, least of all David, because it contained nothing of real worth to him. 3 weeks later, I received a letter from him. It was like a punch to the soul. 3 weeks after the accident, as David slowly, agonizingly, began his long road to recovery, a letter arrived. It wasn't typed, nor was it sent through legal channels. It was a simple, handwritten envelope, addressed to Richard, and slipped under the door of my lonely apartment by a nurse. My hands trembled as I opened it, a mix of hope and trepidation warring within me. I expected anger, resentment, perhaps a plea for understanding. What I read, however, was far more devastating than any outburst, because it was laced with a quiet, profound forgiveness that somehow felt more painful than any accusation. Each word, penned in his familiar, slightly clumsy script, felt like a direct hit, aimed squarely at the unprotected core of my being. Reading aloud. Dad, it wasn't the money. It was your presence. I've already forgiven you, but I don't want to try to find you anymore. The simplicity of his words, stripped bare of any malice, was what truly broke me. He didn't need to shout, his quiet truth was enough. He had forgiven me, not because I deserved it, but because he was a better man than I had ever been a father. But that forgiveness came with a devastating condition: he was done trying to bridge the chasm I had created. He wouldn't chase me, wouldn't wait, wouldn't hope for a connection that had never truly materialized. The letter was an acknowledgement of a wound too deep to heal, a bond severed by years of neglect. It wasn't a rejection born of anger, but of resignation, a quiet declaration that he had finally stopped waiting for a father who was never truly there. I would give my entire fortune to live a single weekend with him. Just one. Just to say I was there. Now, sitting alone in the sprawling emptiness of my mansion, surrounded by every conceivable luxury, I would trade it all, every single asset, every dollar, every share, for a single, ordinary weekend with my son. Just one. I'm not talking about grand gestures or extravagant trips. I yearn for the mundane, the precious, forgotten routines. I imagine arriving at the hospital on the day of his accident, not minutes after the call, but before it, my presence a shield against the solitude he faced. I picture myself there, waiting with him in the emergency room, holding his hand, letting him know he wasn't alone. That simple act, so basic, so fundamental, now feels like the most unreachable wish. I conjure images in my mind, vivid and tantalizing, of moments I never seized. I see us by that old lake, casting lines into the placid water, the quiet companionship a balm to my weary soul. I imagine his laughter echoing through the trees, the sunlight glinting off the water as he reels in a fish. I see us sitting at the dinner table, sharing stories, simply being a family, the way we should have been. But these are just phantoms, cruel reminders of a reality that will never be. The images flicker and fade, replaced by the stark, unrelenting truth of my current reality, a man who had everything, yet lost the only thing that truly mattered. My fortune, once a source of immense pride, is now nothing more than a monument to my greatest regret, a constant reminder of the invaluable cost of my neglect. If you still have time, use it. Spend it on what money can't buy. Love, presence, forgiveness. Because one day, all that's left, will be too late. My story is not one of triumph, but of profound loss, a cautionary tale whispered from the echoes of an unlived life. If you are reading this, if you are blessed with the gift of time, then I implore you, with every fiber of my being, use it wisely. Don't fall into the trap I did, believing that success, measured in material wealth, can compensate for the richness of human connection. Money can buy houses, but not a home filled with laughter. It can buy cars, but not the joy of a shared road trip. It can buy privacy, but not the profound solace of genuine intimacy. The most valuable investments are not found in stock portfolios or real estate empires. They are found in the fleeting moments of shared presence, in the quiet acts of love, in the courage to offer and receive forgiveness. Do not wait for a crisis to awaken you to the truth. Do not wait for a phone call that shatters your world to realize the true currency of life. Spend your time, your most precious, non-renewable resource, on what truly matters. Your relationships, your family, your spiritual well-being, the simple, everyday moments that weave the tapestry of a life well lived. Embrace the messy, imperfect beauty of being present, of showing up, of truly seeing and hearing those you love. Because I promise you, with a certainty born of the deepest regret, there will come a day when all that remains is the crushing weight of what could have been, and by then, it will be far, far too late. Don't wait to be rich to be present. If my story resonated with you, if it stirred something within your soul, then please, share it with someone who might still change the ending of their own. My profound hope, in sharing this raw and painful account, is that it might serve as a beacon, however dim, for others teetering on the edge of the same precipice. Do not let the relentless pursuit of external validation or financial gain blind you to the irreplaceable treasures that lie within your reach, in the loving faces of your family, in the quiet moments of connection. My journey serves as a stark reminder that some mistakes cannot be rectified, some losses are irreparable, and some truths are learned with a bitterness that lingers long after the initial pain subsides. This isn't about judgment, it's about illumination, a plea from a man who learned the hardest lesson imaginable. Do not allow yourself to become another statistic in the silent tragedy of missed opportunities and unexpressed love. You still have time, a precious gift that I no longer possess. Use it to build bridges, to mend fences, to embrace fully those who matter most. Let my story be a catalyst for change, a whisper in your ear that urges you to prioritize presence over possessions, love over luxury, and connection over conquest. Don't permit more people to make the same mistake I made. Share this message, not as a burden, but as an offering of hard-won wisdom, an opportunity to rewrite the narratives of countless lives before the final chapter is irrevocably closed. Subscribe now to ensure more people hear this crucial message.